Hello and welcome. Perceived corruption at the presidency. Now, is it merely a perception or is there some truth behind the perception? Well, they said there's no smoke without fire. So if there's smoke, there must be some fire simmering underneath it. Indeed, has the presidency done a lot or enough to stem all this corruption that we hear about? There isn't a day that you open the paper that there is one aspect of corruption. But what really beats me is, some of the judgments, you look at the priorities that the state or state officials make. Can that also be, deemed as corrupt, or that is just a misplaced priority and we wash it under the carpet? Then we have the Public Accounts Committee, and one after the other, department after department comes, clearly overblown their budget, and they go scot-free, and then the following year we continue. What do we do to stem this? Today with me in the studio, I have a very fine politician, Rashid Pelpo. I'll come and give you all his credentials later. My name is Nana Ansakwa. This is PM Express. When we come, we are asking, is it just a perception or there's truth behind it? Don't move. Well, thank you very much for staying. Perceived corruption at the presidency. Politics is all about perception. I mean, there are, 27 million people by now, and not every single one of them will not have the chance of meeting a politician, sometimes even a doctor, let alone the president. So all they do is what they read from papers or what somebody told them, and so they just have that perception as to whether the country is good or bad, and they go with it. It is up to the state to stem this perception. That's if indeed it's a perception. And the perception now is that the presidency is the second most corrupt institution there is, and closely followed by the police. Ironically, these are the two institutions that are supposed to be very, very clean. With me to discuss the issue is Honorable Rashid Pelpo, Minister of State at the presidency in charge for public-private partnership, and also an Honorable Member of Parliament for Wa Central. You are welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nana.
Well, the IEA held the forum today about corruption, so we'll get in set to set the premises for this conversation. It's going to be a very sensitive one. Stay tuned.
The story of several known anti-corruption crusaders appointed within the presidency who appear to have made little or no impact in mitigating the current perception of corruption in the presidency. I refer also to one anti-corruption activist of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. In his most recent public statement, Mr. Batidam appears less enthusiastic in urging leadership to lead in the fight against corruption. The presidential advisor on corruption advocates that systems rather than the president himself should lead the fight against corruption. He adds that it is undemocratic to expect the presidency to lead the anti-corruption drive. Mahama is not a judge, he says. And with such a lame excuse for the lack of anti-corruption initiatives within the presidency, one would indeed wonder whether the terms of reference in Batidam's appointment letter would be, since his boss is not a judge. But need I forget Boabia Samwa, formerly also of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, whose credentials may have led to his appointment within the presidency of the Kufuor government, working in the office of the vice president. Its impact on the anti-corruption within the Kufuor presidency, like others, remains unknown. So is the accountability office that was established within that presidency.
Well, thank you very much for staying. The issue, perception of the presidency being corrupt, is it true or is it false? Keep your comments coming on Facebook and see them coming in very fast. It's a sensitive issue and everybody wants to have a chip, and I will by all means read your comments for you. Let me just add that Mr. Pelpo was also once Minister of Sports and also Deputy Majority Leader. So I was trying, being in political corridors for a long time. I just want to start with our true or false question, and then we go. It's going to be a difficult one, but I mean, is it just a perception that the president, and when I say presidency, I don't mean President Mahama as an individual, but a presidency as a whole machinery. Is it corrupt or it's not corrupt?
It's not corrupt at all.
Now, let me add that, Rashid is one of my favorite politicians, a fine politician. So, you think so?
Yeah,
or
I think
so?
I think so. Good evening to your listeners. It looks like the understanding of what government machinery is like at the presidency is lacking. At the presidency, no policies are implemented. Policies are defined. Clearance are given to policy initiatives for them to manifest. It is done through cabinets, and the president chairs cabinets. So if anybody is talking about the presidency being corrupt, it may be as a result of policy decision being corrupt.
In Akan, they say that the adult who stays at home while the children are using their knife to, dissect an anaconda, if indeed the executioners come in and are looking for anaconda eaters, they would call the adults as well, because you oversee the children while they were, dicing up the anaconda with a knife. So it comes back to the adults that the president, overlooking everything, is he not looking well enough?
Actually, then we could change the discourse and say that some ministries, and you should point the ministries, or some organizations, and we should point out those organizations, are corrupt. And that's the president is not doing A, B, C, D about them. If that is said, then we know how to tackle it. But if it is narrowed down to the presidency, where people go and want to run back to the ministries, I have been a minister of state for the last 2 years. I don't, even if I want to corrupt, I have no way of corrupting. I have no budget. I don't know what to do to get money apart from my salary. And that's the same with every other person working under the presidency. So if they say you are corrupt, it baffles you. It makes you feel funny, If the presidency is corrupt, who is it that they are talking about being corrupt? Is it the ministers of state at the presidency? Is it the presidential staffers who are just there and are big in name, or who are they talking about? I think that it is a perception which is not supported by facts and which is not helped by any concrete analysis or concrete research to come out with some definitive ideas, that would put the presidency in the center of corruption.
But by how much did the president exceed its last budget?
And that's something that the public was misinformed about.
Okay.
The total budget, 100% of the president's budget, was never exceeded. The chief of staff office, which is part of the total presidency budget, was exceeded, chief of staff's budget. In the totality of the budget...
But the chief of staff not part of the presidency?
He's part of it. So when they were discussing his budget, it was realized that he was short the balance. The total amount of money that was to be spent by the president, only 62% of it was spent. So we didn't even get to the 100% level of the president's budget or the presidency's budget. Now, because somebody raised an issue and talked about the over expenditure of the chief of staff, it came out, to the public that the presidency had overspent its budget, which was wrong. Within the totality of the budget, that over expenditure was even much less than, what was our budget. So we didn't overspend at all. That wasn't the case. It was wrongly said, wrongly perceived, and were accused unfairly. So I think that there is some amount of difficulty in communicating the real facts about what the presidency does. The presidency is made up of several other organizations, more than 20 other organizations. The ACE Commission, Public Service Commission, private sector, there are about 20 of them. Financial institutions, some financial institutions, and development agencies, all together make up what they call the presidency, and they have the budget. So if you say it is corrupt, if it is GBC, if, for example, the private sector or the AIDS Commission, there's some corruption in any one of the agencies, people should be bold to say there's corruption in one of the agencies. But if you say the presidency is vague, it's amorphous, it's lazy work, and it's being supported by people who should do more research and understand what it is.
Let me clarify that. Well, I mean, because I say the presidency now, then it's the presidency. But per the IEA, they were talking about a culture of a presidency. So it cuts across, not necessarily justice regime, but they went all the way back, even cited example within Kufuor's era. And as we build our case, it will come there. But does the buck not stop at the president's desk?
It does.
So then who else do I turn to? Because as at the moment, if there's any malfeasance, I mean, I can call Kwesi Nkrumah and say, well, you know, what's going on with the presidency? I need to call Mahama, whether he likes it or not. It becomes his problem, whether he calls it or not.
The funny thing is that President Mahama is sitting in his office, working very hard, ensuring that the government machinery moves on smoothly, it's productive. Somebody sits somewhere and imagines that there's corruption, and then you go ahead and say, President, answer, because you are corrupt. He's not even aware.
I give you a reason why. Now, after the Brazil saga,
yes,
they went through, you know, the Jamafe Commission, and you know, there were people who pointed the direction at the shopping mall and took 10% of whatever it is they spend there. I mean, it's a really damning report. The minister then, who was overseeing everything, you know, was moved from the sports ministry close to the presidency. So everybody's now saying, hold on, was he so good that he went to the president, or was he so bad that he was moved to the presidency? Everybody's concerned, because clearly if you listen to the commission, you can't say, what a beautiful work they did. It was something did not go right. The person who supersedes that moves to the presidency. Everybody's worried.
You know, it's part of the challenge we have. You know, when people are accused of something and there's no concrete proof that they have done that something, it is difficult to pin them down and to punish them for it. What had been reported had been refuted also by the minister. It's his word against the one who accused him. The next step is, for example, to cause further investigation into it, and then if there's a need, you tender in for prosecution. It hasn't gotten there. So how come anybody is, for example, imagining that that minister was corrupt? You can establish corruption when you have given enough evidence, when the evidence is tested before the law, and when the law finally comes to a conclusion that the person, the subject, who is the subject matter of the discussion, is actually corrupt. Then you can take an action. Then you can say that after taking that action, the minister is still at the presidency, or the minister is still at post. But at the moment, everything that is being said is fueled by some kind of perception, some kind of belief that something is happening when actually we cannot prove that that thing is happening. But I think what the Ghanaian public should be doing is to be pushing for further action on something they think is left undone, so that in the end, we can get to the bottom of it. But if we sit back, including people who
let me come in, because what happens is the public will push and push, and then it gets to the point where you just made the same thing. Oh, okay, thank you very much. You've said it, but you've just given me the evidence, you've given me this, but I need to take it to a court. And so it doesn't matter how blatant and how obvious it is, authorities don't seem to act or sideline the people swift enough.
No, I think the public is appearing not to be interested. You know, they prefer to believe in the perception and sit back. Government is not out of reach by the public. Government is not sacrosanct. Government is an institution put in place by the people. They, through their influence, can insist on things to change the direction they want. But if you sit back, then everything sits back. You cannot sit back and complain and expect things to happen. You know, government is too busy within 4 years to create wealth to create value, out of the decisions they make. Too busy to be able to understand or to be able to pay attention to too many details. So it's important for the public, which is also part of the organic whole, to help bring out these things, to push government into doing things that will eventually, benefit everybody. But if everybody sits back and believes just in the perception, no research has been done, nobody is interested in probing, and we all just are satisfied with
I'll come back to the research being done, but how much of this negative perception do you think is from maybe opposing media?
A lot of it. Also even from within, because we have an endemic feeling in Ghana that probing into issues don't help. Once you perceive something, let's stay there, and that is it. You even take people to police station, file a writ or do anything. If they ask for evidence, it's very difficult to get people to come and give evidence or be witnesses to anything at all. It's part of our hallmark. But let me tell you, in Ghana, we have done well in our fight against corruption. From 2006, 2008, 2012, there has been a decrease in corruption. The global perception global perception index on corruption has been improving from year to year. Now it just moved from 64 to 63, and Ghana is ranked 7th less corrupt country in Africa. So as globally we are seen to be doing well, internally we are seen to be doing worse. Why? Because people believe in armchair research about who we are, what we can do to help ourselves, what individuals can do to help us. And also, just looking at a politician and saying there's corruption. There's so much corruption elsewhere within people who don't come near politics at all. Why is it that everybody complains about our borders, entry points? Army Yao did some research. We all saw it and saw how ordinary, everyday people are so corrupt. People who are at posts are corrupt. Those who are selling or who are exporting are corrupt, and that's fine.
The political head then could have easily fired the boss of SEPS, but he wasn't fired.
And nobody talked. Yeah, I'm saying that government is not about...
So it all comes back, and then it will come back to the presidency.
Government is not about one person, especially our type of government, our democracy, our rule of law. It's not about one person sitting down there and taking decisions for everybody every time.
Yes, it is. The president has superior powers.
No, we are influenced by the people, the pressures by the people. Private citizens exerting their influence and their pressures on us, insisting on things that will make us all better, following on them and creating disturbance. Disturbance not about road marching on going on the street and etc. etc. But talking about them, bringing up issues. Nobody does that, and that's my worry. We just simply talk and nothing takes place. But what I'm saying is that what they call corruption in Ghana, if we go into it, 90% of it is just perception. 90% of it is by opposition. People trying to oppose you, but without knowing what to do, they try to fuel some perception, and it keeps on. I'm not saying by this that there is no corruption. I'm not saying that my government is perfect and independent, perfect and cannot be blamed for issues that are coming up. No. We can be blamed. We should be blamed for some issues. But in totality, I can tell you that 90% of most of the things that are said are not true.
You see, I'm sure my viewers listening today, some of them may have their generators on and counting how much diesel is sipping away, and businesses that have closed. We are literally on our knees now as far as the economy is concerned and conditions And times are hard now in Ghana. Listening to you, it's like, oh, the stories are, majority of the story is just being written and it's not the actuality. But the actuality on the ground is that people are losing their jobs. The radio section of multimedia was shut off at midnight, which is unheard of. Administration block have to kick out by 7 o'clock, so they turn off all the lights. These are trying times. And so things are not okay.
I do admit that we are in some of our most difficult times. Difficult times because power, which is the engine of development, all development, industry, we are suffering because we have small power. We have less power than we would need. The demand for power has increased several times fold. The installed capacity as years go by don't match with the demand. The reliable, most dependable supply of power is very small. But that doesn't mean that everything is too bad, that government should continually be blamed, and that we should raise our hands and just say that everything has gone bad.
Is it a matter of misplaced priorities then? Because I think the question of money not being in the system would not go down well because there is money in the system. And according to all records in the last 6 years, this presidency has been very fortunate in revenue collection, in regard to gold, oil, taxes. So as far as money is concerned, money is in the system. So maybe it's priority.
I think that is also another perception, that there's money in the system. The government is fortunate. One day, let me tell you a story. President Mills, I entered his office. And when I entered, he was sitting with a jackjaw. And I said, Prof, good afternoon. Is there anything wrong? He said, Rashid, we're in one of the worst periods. I said, why? Everybody's talking about oil. We were just about to start production of oil. He said, everybody's talking about oil, as if oil is going to bring us some unimaginary wealth. This single spine that we have accepted and adopted, the cost of it is going to wipe out all the gains of our oil money coming in. That was what he said. And that it was a worrying development. And that the future about our oil discovery, the expectations of Ghanaians, the anxiety about it, the hopes about it, measured with the increasing amount of money we are paying to public service workers, increasing amount of money we are spending on our payroll, was not going to commensurate with the inflow. And it is true. At one point, we spent 69.9% of our total revenue into paying for, single spine. Right now, it's about 57% of total revenue into single spine. Oil money is less than is about 4 times less than the single spine amount of the amount of money we pay into public service pairs. Our salaries. It's becoming a problem. If we consider how much we subsidize, now we are trying to cut down on subsidy. Mm-hmm. If you consider how much we subsidize, how much we pay our workers, and how much we service our debts, compared to how much we earn in a year, we have nothing at all to work with. So eventually, what has to happen is that we need to borrow money to work. So when you talk about people being corrupt, there's nothing even to be corrupt about. Where is the money? The departments, the agencies, the ministries don't have enough to operate with. So what is it that they are corrupt about? Where is the money they are spending? So the only thing we do is to borrow money in order to make up for the gap, the huge gap between expenditure and income.
You see, Rashid, in the same breath, right, somebody like RLG was given 50 million Ghana cedis interest-free loan. The government itself borrows at a treasury bill rate of 23%. He then goes away, doesn't account for the money. Eventually, Attorney General calls him and says, well, pay the money back. I think he's paid back 4 million or something of the Ghana cedi, and he still has that money interest-free. I mean, so if at the back of all this, the same state can make such a decision, it's worrying for the average citizen. I haven't gone into JIDA, I haven't gone into SADA. And some of the things that went on there, even if it's not corruption, I mean, is it daylight robbery? Is it just a misplaced priority? But if I combine JIDA, SADA, and put RLG together, and then at the back of it say, oh, well, I don't have money, the citizen will accept it.
You know, we need to understand what happened in the past. In the case of JIDA,
it was daylight robbery.
The
SADA, yeah.
You know, these were initiatives that deliberately were put in place to reduce poverty, to create jobs for people. Mm-hmm. They were not meant to be monies that would be spent on projects that were amortizing. In other words, you were not spending them on projects hoping that the projects would pay back the money. There were money spent on projects hoping that it will have a snowball effect on creating jobs for young people and creating value for them, mm-hmm. and churning out entrepreneurs so they can be on their own and be able to function within the...
Which is a good idea.
Yeah. So that was a good idea. Mm-hmm. So we tried it. Unfortunately, the machinery we would move with, meaning the businesses that were supposed to use the money to be able to turn around to help these people, couldn't do it. Government had good intention, perfect good intention, wanting to, stimulate businesses and get young people into it. Unfortunately, it didn't go well. There was never an intention of government to throw away money. There was never an intention of government to spend money illegally. There was never an intention of money
a little due diligence could have stopped all this.
Just a little
due diligence.
So let's question the due diligence. Let's say that it should never happen. Let us put in place machinery to curb it in future. There was this JIDA Youth Employment Program put in place without any guidelines on its operations at all. It originated from the national security in the NPP regime. And monies were given to young people and businesses in the same way. When NDC came, they went through the same process. And then, in the end, let's say business took advantage of it, grew out of proportions, and didn't use it the way we wanted. Now, I don't think that...
So where are the prosecutions? Where are the money? So that the perception will stop.
But you just said that some people are starting to pay back, you know.
Well, no,
so we can continue to enforce it. What you have even quoted might not be correct, because we cannot find out, we cannot sit here and conjecture that they have only paid 4 million.
I mean,
there may be, I'm sure that...
Rashid, would you, as a private man, borrow money at 23% and give it to somebody and say, well, there, take it and, pay me back, whatever?
This is a situation where you are using money to look for money. The cost of money is very high. We know it in Ghana. So when you borrow money intending to do business, to multiply your money, you don't do that. But when you are doing a social intervention project, where the money would go would be relaxed for young people to be able to use it. For example, this 10 million Ghana cedis John Mahama, His Excellency John Mahama has launched. We are giving it to young people. We are not asking them to pay the same kind of interest rate. We are not even asking them to pay the interest rate that, a quarter of the interest rate that is prevalent.
This was going to the young people. This was going to a businessman who was doing business.
No.
He had a business model.
No. It's not like that. That money was meant for him to train young people, equip them with skills, and then churn them out to be on their own. The mistake was that he utilized the money, and after a lot of, some investigations were done, it was found that he did not train all the people he needed to train. There were two ways of dealing with it. Get him to ensure that he did the real training. Get them, the young people, let him spend the money the way he should spend it. Or let him pay back. If you are not confident that he will do it back, he will do what you want him to do.
Aren't there too many of these stories?
No, I don't think there are too many of them. because
I mean, there was basket weaving in Boligatanga. That was $1.25 million to train people to weave baskets in Boligatanga.
Yeah. I mean, it's all one set of idea which failed. It's all one set of idea. Just like the initiative in the past, the starch initiative, when the APP thought that they could do a factory and do that and do, issues that could have...
The presidential special initiative thing. Yeah,
presidential special initiative. It was a bright idea. The expectation was that it will create value, it will create business, it will ginger up businesses to rise, and then we can have benefit of them. They failed. Do you know the amount of money they put in there? It was with good intention. So we did it with good intention. They did it with good intention. We did it with good intention. The thing that we need to do, and which we have done, is to make sure JIDA will no longer be a pronouncement by cabinets. It should have a legal backing. It should come with an act of parliament. It should come with all the encumbrances that makes it impossible for somebody to spend money without headache. If you spend money, you pay for it. And that's just what we have done. Now, if you spend money from JIDA, you will pay for it. It is a law now, and there are procedures in procurement, and you will have to go through the same procedures. In the past, there were no procedures. There were no laid-down rules. The idea was just to make sure the many teeming young people who are claiming unemployment and who are suffering and who need to be engaged are engaged. And national security quickly would release money for these things to be done, and then we didn't get the benefit of it.
I'm going to take a break here. When I come back, presidency, cutting across, is it because the lack of you and I demanding accountability? Because at every given time, we're divided. If I demand accountability now, I'm NPP. If I demanded accountability probably 8 years ago, then I'm NDC. So at every given time, the presidency has got a hiding place. And bear in mind that it is 50-50. So they all have, a good chunk of people who would step up and say, oh, no, don't demand accountability now because many years ago you didn't demand it. Is that the reason why we have the leaders we have? Don't move. Thank you very much for staying. We're talking about a very sensitive matter, and there's a lot of stories about corruption. Most morning shows, most newspapers would always write something about some corrupt institute, some corrupt minister, some corrupt department, and we're just trying to find out, is it a perception? It's just the newspapers blowing it out of perception, or it's the reality? Now, thank you very much for posting your comments on Facebook. Look for Joy News. If you have Facebook, post your comment, and then I'll catch it. If it's too harsh, I can't read it because it's sensitive. But there are some good ones. Parkwesi Pieni says, I believe so. Believes there's corruption. Kweku Abekunyami says, Mr. Pelpo, be bold and speak the truth. Don't cover up for people. Don't cover up for people. Ghanaians know what's going on. Beware, 2016 is round the corner. This one says, Ghana is good in a false state of address. I don't get it quite. Samson Bona says, is a free anchor still with Mr. President at the Flagstaff House? If so, then no comment. There's one here that says, I will say no, because there's no realistic as to whether we can prove that out, as to whether we can prove it's corrupt. And this is from Suleimana. And let me go up here. And this is Akumbisu Atanga, who says, actually, he can't be an exception of corruption because he is irresponsible. No, not this one, but there's another one who says that dealing with corruption is like trying to heat the ocean in Ghana. You won't be able to get rid of it. So you see, these are people commenting on Facebook and what they feel. They're probably sat in the darkness somewhere or struggling somewhere, so to them it's real. But you see, what I'm going to move you through is the Ministry of Energy. Now, between 2010 and 2012, bought 36 luxury cars under the 350 million Exim Bank loan for rural electrification. Now, Mr. Purple, you are a well-traveled man. And indeed, I traveled and met a very honorable man who spoke highly of Mr. Pelpo. So I came and passed the message on to you. Mr. Pelpo, in the corridors of the likes of Britain, Britain has a GDP of about, I think, $4 trillion. The United States has $16 trillion. We have mere $70 billion GDP. We drive cars that even the Prime Minister of UK will be jealous of. Fleet of brand new Toyotas, from the luxury V8 Land Cruisers to the sleek, Camrys. Countries that are far richer than us can't display that. Indeed, the Ministry of Transport in UK have two pool of cars. Two. One is a Toyota Avensis. I don't know what the other one is. And that's the Ministry of Transport of the United Kingdom. I can't say it's corruption, but what is it?
That's a question that has often baffled many. And the last time I tried to investigate why these vehicles were bought, they brought a retinue of cases in the past since our dealings with these agencies that would engineer finances for us. And we realized that in the agreements sent to Parliament, the input it as one of the conditions, one of the things they were going to do. So, for example, the ministry will say, we need 3 Land Cruisers because we lack them. At least the director doesn't have a Land Cruiser, it doesn't have a vehicle, he can move from here to Wa and to Tumu in order to inspect things. So once we are taking this loan, let's spend $200,000 or $1 million take advantage of it and get vehicles that can be used as vehicles that we use for doing the rounds and doing the monitoring and evaluation work that needs to be done. And so they put it there, then it comes to Parliament, then we don't disapprove it, we don't take it out, we also approve it. Then the implementation process comes in. Now, then you get what you approve. You cannot say it's the ministry. You can't say it's cabinet. You can't say it's anybody. I mean,
that's why
it becomes everybody's concern.
Mm-hmm.
Now the question is, should we continue to allow that? I think that we need to scrutinize these agreements very well, and we need to be very certain about what we want. So in the end, we don't get embarrassed. Buying things that we don't need, buying things that in the end, when you are questioned about it, compared to the situation where a hospital would need an X-ray machine. One hospital needs an X-ray machine. They are just in the process of fixing it, and then they don't get it. Then something like this happens. Then you find it difficult as a politician to try to explain. So I think that we need to have a comprehensive look at it, the agreements we sign, how we sign them, how eventually to play back to us, and what benefits we are going to get out of it, so that we get value for money at each point in time when we go a borrowing, seeking to redress one particular problem.
And our so-called development partners, jealous of the cars that we drive here?
They approve that, and they approve.
No, you see, they would say you have to buy a vehicle made from the country which the loan is coming from.
Yes.
But they're not going to tell you that go and buy the top-of-the-line vehicle. It could be a bicycle. If you say, look, I can use a bicycle from Japan or a bicycle from America, I'm not sure they will disapprove it. But we buy top-of-the-line.
No, I think that what happens is that for the minister's use, all across history, not just this administration.
No, not at all. Not at
for
all.
the minister's use, they often will buy maybe a luxury car for him. And then for anything, for the chief director, something like that too, just for the two. The rest of them will be cross-country vehicles. They are all lumped together to mean luxury vehicles, but they are actually not all luxury vehicles. If you take the Ministry of energy. The vehicles we saw were two of the vehicles. Two of the vehicles were luxury vehicles. The former minister saw it and said it was too much for him. So he sent it to the presidency and said, this was not what I asked for, but that's what was brought for me. And I think it's too big for me. So he sent it to the presidency. So there has been some evidence that we don't scrutinize our agreements well.
Is it taking advantage of the masses? Because generally, we are very politically drunk. Anyone who's NPP, if it's an NPP regime and they are driving helicopters, they don't care. If it's a NDC now, they don't care whatever cars you drive because they'll make reference, oh, why? Kufuor and the ministers drop the same. Why can't our party drive the same? We've become so party inclined and nation inclined. And I think the politicians are milking it.
I can say that my president, our president, President John Mahama, drives a very simple car. I'm using a Toyota Camry, a small Toyota Camry. That's what he uses also. And he's been insisting on that. Sometimes I feel embarrassed, seeing that me and my president are using almost the same car, not a complex car at all. And I think it's a good example for us to, for the ministers.
Why aren't the others following suit?
Yeah, we need to follow suit. And I think it's good for us to follow suit because we cannot continue to go the way we go. Allow people to dictate to us what kind of vehicles to be put in an agreement, and then you get Parliament to sign and you go and buy them and you can...
No, but you see, apart from the agreement vehicles which are luxury, even, most ministers will get one four-wheeler and then one small car.
Yes.
I mean, that's not because somebody, gave you a contract. That's just state money, and that's what the ministers think, well, this is my entitlement. Now, I'll give you one. The Minister of Health. The Ministry of Health have a policy. So the driver of the has a pickup, the GV plate pickup. He drives his pickup, Ford Ranger, to the minister's house, and then drives the minister to work, leaves his pickup, and then comes back and then takes his pickup home. So state has to buy.
Which ministry?
The Ministry of Health. I mean, and as we are talking, I'll try and show you the picture as we are talking. Okay, fine. This is not the minister's policy. This is the ministry's policy. So they buy a pickup for the minister's driver. He then drives the car to the minister's house in the morning.
You don't have to show me.
Yeah, and then takes him to work, and then comes back, and the driver takes his pickup back home. I mean, this is Ghana.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying the public has to be very conscious, has to be eager to talk, and has to be insistent on what they believe in. So there should be part of governance. If we all think that this is wasteful, should not happen, let's talk about it. Let's tell our leaders not to do it. And we are listening. We listen. We are very conscious about public opinion. And I know John Mahama is the number one person, His Excellency John Mahama is number one person who would warn you about public opinion. He will say, look, if you get public opinion to have a feeling about you this way, I'm going to act because we serve the public. So I encourage us all, if these things shouldn't come out in the public discussions only. We should rise to the ministry and say, express concern about it. What is it that should compel the ministry to buy a pickup utility vehicle for a driver, for him to drive, and then go and pick a minister? Anything, any better suggestion that should cure the problem should be presented. I believe that...
What is public perception about the presidency now?
I think that there is... I won't be able to tell because I'm part of it. But I think the public perception is fueled by the people who are the cream of society, people who should tell the truth about it, but are also
But what's the perception now?
But are also swayed by those who feed on perception that it's not necessarily true, and then it becomes the rule by those who are not aware. But the perception
out there, what is it now?
I actually don't know. Maybe somebody has to tell me. But I'm told. I went to the IEA Anti-Corruption Summit, and I listened to Professor Kojo Yanka, Kwesi Yanka, and he said that the perception is that the presidency is corrupt.
Do you believe him?
I don't believe him at all. In fact, I don't believe him at all. I expected that he should have done some background work to present two situations.
No, perception. They asked people, what did you think? And they said the presidency was bad. Do you think the people who said the presidency was good and he came back and
But that's very, very fundamental. That's very minimal.
No, we're talking perception. We're not talking...
That's what I'm saying. If you have this perception, the presidency is not out of reach. The presidency is in Accra. Let somebody do some basic findings.
Let me take a quick break, and then when I come back, we'll look at priorities before we end up. Has the government prioritized? We're coming straight back. Well, thank you very much for staying. We're discussing corruption as whether it's a perception or reality. And indeed, if it's a perception, if it's a reality, how much it is. If it's a perception, how much it is. But I just wanted, before we go, find out if indeed we have prioritized. I say no, we have not prioritized at all. But you are in the seat of government. Do you think government has really, if we've earned 100 cities, has he put the 100 cities in the right place?
Priorities are defined by policy. And they are also derived from the manifesto we present to the people.
I'll give you one, then you go on. I know every minister of state here flies business class. When they're going to the London, when they're going to their Germanys to get money, they fly business class. These countries that we're going to get money from, any journey less than 8 hours, you fly economy. It doesn't matter who you are. If you have your money to top up and go business class, the state can afford it. But we don't. The state will buy you business to first class to go and ask for money from people who fly economy and drive modest cars than we do. Have we prioritized?
Well, what you are saying is not standard, because I know of countries where it's forbidden for ministers to sit in economy for their safety and for the protection against terrorists and other people who would abuse them. They raise them. Even some of them fly first class. For the sake of the minister and for the sake
over
of the country.
Over 10 hours you will. Under 10, under 8 hours you will.
Within the country, if it is within Europe, where you just fly 2-3 hours, you don't need a first class ticket. No. But priorities are defined also by policies. And policies drives from manifestos, which are presented to the people and which are voted for. So you are bound to go by them, because that's what the people said they want, for which reason they voted for you. So sometimes you may have a priority and would want to change it. For example, if we decide that building secondary schools now is not a priority, will be dealt with severely by the people.
That would always be a priority. But let's look at PPP, because under PPP came JIDA and all these things, and it really did not all go well. What is going on? Because now you are in charge of public-private partnership. What's happening there now? What's going to be new that, so that we don't repeat our past mistakes?
Yeah. So now, if we want to relate with business in a contractual relation, contractual relation in contract to relate with them in ways that will mean that there's a future for the two of you, the two entities, the business and the public sector. We have to go through some processes. The processes are defined. First of all, we have to prepare projects. You don't just come with a prepared project and impose it on us. We need to do value for money. We need to know the cost of the project. We need to know everything about the project before we throw it in a, we throw it out for a tender. Then you come and tender for the project on PPP basis. When you win the project, you sign an agreement, a PPP agreement. It's a very, very cumbersome process. The minimum number of years you would require to prepare a project and to give it out on contract is about 3 years, at the end of which you can then say the project is yours. Because we've had experiences in the past that didn't augur well for us. And we are not willing, we are no longer ready to compromise on it at all. It doesn't matter how long it takes. So for the last 2 years, since the John Mahama, Excellency John Mahama's administration, we've been working to prepare projects. Not one of them has taken off yet. The reason is that we want to make sure the Ghanaian is not abused.
Briefly, before you go, what is it about the sports ministry that just recycles so many ministers?
It's very difficult to understand, but I have been there before, and I did so many things, which today, when other people do them, it becomes a problem. In fact, the sports ministry, I must tell you, is one of the poorest in the, if we can say it may be the poorest, because there's nothing there. And I suffered a lot when I was there. I carried money the same way as somebody else carried money. I came here, took some money. I didn't even get money because there was no money. I had to borrow money, somebody's money. Who gave, a friend who went to his vault and took money, gave it to me. I carried it, to my players in quiet. I'm saying this because to give you the kind of ministry that is a situation where sometimes you don't have money at all. It has to be left to the ingenuity of the minister. You have lots of people showing interest in sports and lots of people bringing out ideas, trying to influence you in different directions. But you have to be focused. I did the World Cup in Egypt and we won it and brought it. I did the African Cup in Angola. We played second and came back. In all of these things, we spent money. But if somebody tells me there was corruption there, I'll be surprised because there was nothing called corruption. You take the money, you give it to the GFA budgets the money, give you the amount, you go take the money, give it to the sports accountant, he disperses it to the GFA, and there's nothing left. So you don't know where the corruption is coming from.
Well, but listening to the Brazil Commission, you could tell things didn't go right.
Yeah, because that's the problem. Because as you go on, maybe things change. But as I was there, I had my own policies. I would not touch money, and I wouldn't do anything about expenditure.
Mr.
It was a ministry of the GFA that did it.
And your name hasn't come up from any wrongdoings. Yeah. So thank you very much. Is it Alaji, right?
Yes, I'm also an Alaji. I'm a doctor, Alaji. Honorable, plenty. If I were in Nigeria, I would have charged you.
You
I would say
now.
you add all of them.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a great conversation. Well, folks, I told you, one of the fine politicians to talk to. I hope you've enjoyed it. Tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again. Let me say thank you to all the team who's made the show possible. Thank you very much for watching.